Wow. What a week. We had a lot of activity in this place. It's not just this week, it's really the culmination of several weeks of a service project. We were contacted by the Samaritan's Purse, and they wanted and needed a place to have a venue, an epicenter that all of the churches is south is Euphrates, all the way up north in Kashmir and up to work together as Christian believers and put together these boxes as gifts. It's going to be shared with around the world. So this is the effort that we started several weeks ago. It's a lot of work, a lot of hands, a lot of people who are there. Most of the people who like to do this, they don't need to have any thanks. The reward is to do this. And this is what happened when all of the people who are dropping off these boxes. Sometimes it was a small semi-truck that came through here. Sometimes it's a Honda. Open up the hatchback and bring 3 or 4 boxes. But it was beautiful to watch it. And then we'll get a full report here coming because we're not done. It's not that we just left everything in the hallways. We still have Monday, which might be one of the bigger days, as we have 2 small semis in the back in the parking lot, and it's going to be shipped out. So what does this mean? It just means that thousands of little interactions, little moments where people are going to receive a gift, but then they'll be given an opportunity to say yes to Jesus. What's that worth? I mean, that has to be one of the most worthwhile things to do. We're also going to do the same thing in a few weeks. We still have work to do. I'm telling you, on Sunday we've got work to do. Is that right, Paul? Paul's saying Journey to Bethlehem is coming up in about 2 weeks, I believe. And so, again, people are working on their lines, but we're fitting things. We're trying to make sure everything is as perfect as possible for this story. The story will happen. People will walk into your seats that you're in there, and close to almost 3,000 people will walk through there and see that. Again, like I said, this is an eventful season right now. And so we're excited to just be a part of that. And I don't know, I just have to say, we praise God and say thank you for the opportunity to partner with Him in this. It's just a lot of fun. Lord, as we continue, we invite you into this place. And as we do that, we know it makes everything different. And for that, we're grateful in your name. Amen. So, are you a half empty cup person, or are you the person who's going to look at the glass and it's going to be half full? Some people will say, I'm not either, I'm something else. Well, the reality of the metaphor of the cup of water being half filled, so to speak, is something that's referred to often. But honestly, there are a lot of different things that you can be. You don't have to be a half full or half empty. You could be an optimist. You could be a pessimist. You could be a realist, right? You could be an idealist. I like that one. You could be a pragmatist, right? So it doesn't matter what you guys say. Let's get it done. And then there are an opportunist that you're just there to get what you can at that moment. And all of that, you might say, I'm not any of that. I don't like any of those categories. Why? Because I do not want anyone to label me. Okay, so I might be getting one of these t-shirts, and I'm not sure which color I should go for. That should be, don't label me. But this is why people react to personality, temperaments, or even learning styles. You know, the people who should love a learning style as a teacher to be able to know that, but ask them to do that, they'll cringe and freak out of another survey. Because it's the same thing over and over. You have an instrument that's supposed to give a survey, that's going to give you a category, and you're going to put you in how many groups? Always 4. How is it possible that there's only 4? Well, some now we're really creative with all their temperaments things, and they make 8 or 9 or the reviews, and sometimes there's just 2. But in all of that, when you look at all of those moments that might be this or that, the whole idea of being half full and looking at this cup and using that as a metaphor for how I see life, it's kind of important. I'm surrounded by moments where I can choose to see the glass half empty. It's not there. The church is not half. It's not full. There's a lot of seats. There's a lot of things in my bank account that we could put digits in there. There's a lot of little things in my life that it's like it's unfinished. And it feels like when you're at 50%, and if you're in a class, if you only done 0.5% of a class, what does that mean? That's an F. So, no, there's this thing, a perception of how we see life. And I want to connect that notion to how we see what we have in our world today and in our walk with God. Our perspective never really feels like that there's a gap. Most of the time, we just look at our lives and we're just surviving, or we're at the end of the week or the day and we say, I am who I am. I am here in this place, and we can't think beyond that, and it's fine. But there's so much more than what's on our plate. But when we feel that, we hear some of the responses for people who do look around the world and look at our lives. And I was always curious when I hear people say, and there's a book out that's called Christianity in America is Dead. So this is not only in books, but it's in magazines and it's in research and things like that. And people are prophesying the whole idea that Christianity is an era that's ending. And how do you get to that place? Well, the same way we get to some of these surveys and these instruments. There is, conversations and questions and things like that. But you can look at the world. It's not going the way you think it should, or you're not seeing it the way you were dreaming it should be. Or even the things that we say, if we do this, it should have that kind of a result. So the cause and effect is a real thing in our hearts. And this is why we look around the world and we wonder, what is going on? Are people watching, listening, wondering? So you can see that in a global or a national thing, but then look at your personal life and we say, am I at that place where I thought I'd be? Were there moments in your life that you said yes to God and you said, I really want more, and that moment seems to be a fantasy or something in the past, or it's like the train came and left. And where is that moment? So I look at that, and I even hear people who make observations about the nature of a building, a church, a gathering. People who believe, and they say it's dead, and I say, that's not true. Especially if I'm in the room, I'm not dead. I'm not I'm not the answer either, but you got one warm body there, you get two, the Holy Spirit's there, that's three, you're already, way too many people are saying, I got 3 kids. Let's have 5 or 6, I say. But what I'm saying is that we have this beautiful growth that's going around the world, and we don't see it. And we have this growth that's going in the lives of people, you'll never see it. And then you might even see an empty building, and you'll see nothing but God is seeing. Do you have any idea how many people might populate this moment around the corner? Stay with us. Stay with us, God says. So in all of that, I'm trying to be thoughtful about what do we do in these seasons. And this gap today, I thought I would take us to a place. If there's a gap between where we're at in our journey now and where we might want or hope for, I want to bring us to where Paul let the Ephesians, when he went into prison, he came and he offered this prayer. Now, this is I don't know, it's one of those moments like, if you don't know, we did this if you don't know the answer of a question, what's the answer? All right, it's Jesus, right? That is always, right? And we were here in the hallway, and we're trying to figure out the answer, and I think it was Hallie, you said the answer is Jesus. And was she correct? Yes, 100%. How am I going to argue with that, right? Especially with the conviction, it was great. But what do you do? Same kind of question. What do you do when you don't know what to do? 90% of all of the children's stories in North America are always go to that question. We always pray. And so Paul is the same guy. He comes to this place and he looks to this church, and there's anything that you can talk about. Is there any way you can move people one direction or another? Is it money? No. Yes. Relationships, politics, bad knees, whatever it is. What's to talk about? And he says, no matter what, if you don't know what to do, he starts to pray. He does that in his letter. It's almost like he's writing a letter, and then he's just going to do it verbatim. And so whatever comes to my mind, I'm just going to do it. So what does he do it? He starts the beginning of his letter. He starts and has this theological one-sentence thing for a whole paragraph and a half. No run-ons or anything. The English majors would have a field day with Paul. He goes through all of this stuff, and then he stops and he says, but I have a prayer. His first prayer in Ephesians. And you can look at, it says, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you might know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people. And he is incomparably great power for us who believe. What a beautiful prayer to pray for people. Try this prayer. It's beautiful. And then, at the end, he doesn't know what to do. And you want to see what's in the middle of the book of Ephesians. He goes through all kinds of great metaphors and images and pictures. Paul actually writes in pictures in the book of Ephesians. But you go to the end, and he is praying in chapter 16. He says, and I pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all prayers and requests. This is what I'm praying for, in the Spirit on all occasions. I'm doing this all the time. With this in mind, be alert and be always keep praying. So his prayer that he's doing all the time is to what? All be praying. So is there anything that's more important in your life right now that should be disconnected to this moment of prayer? So this might be the beginning of a great prayer conference or something like that. But what I want to focus is on the prayer is in halfway in this book. It's in Ephesians chapter 3, verses 15 to 19. So you start thinking about the prayer that's in the halfway in this moment, and we have half, whatever you want to say it, whether it's empty or full, right? With this mindset, we'll look at this prayer. And I would going to pray it at the end as well. But think it through as a prayer today. In Ephesians chapter 3, verses 15 to 19, it says this, "For this reason I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name." Who is that? Everyone. "And I pray that out of his glorious riches, that he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit, where? In your inner being." So this is a call, a prayer that's not about the weather or the relationships or the things that are coming or going. It's not things that are happening in your body that you can actually fix at the hospital or things that you can't fix at the hospital. It's one of those prayers that's going to start completely about your inner being. What is your inner being? Because whatever it is, that's the most important thing to pray for. So that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. This is his prayer. So whatever's inside of you has what we call fertile ground for Christ to grow into you. That's what he wants most. And in all of your moments, that is his care, his desire. I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all of the Lord's holy people. These are the people, they call them the saints, right? And when I said it this day, I said to all the workers out there, I said, "How's it going, saints?" And they said, "Oh, what are you talking? Do you know what I did Saturday night?" Now, these are people who said, you are the people who have been chosen. Holy people. It means you have, at one point or another, you put yourself into this place by your choice. You are separated from that to something else. If you walk into this place, you have separated yourself from your duties and your schedule and other things, and you walk into this place. You are the holy people, saints. It doesn't mean you guys are perfect. You know that. I know that. But it does say this. Together with all of the Lord's holy people, grasp. This is what I hope for, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ. So this inner being moment that could be your groundwork, the thing that God wants to come in and grow something, it's to do this. So if this happens, this will grow. And this growth, it's supposed to say, this is going to be so high and long and wide and deep. And this love will be so extensive that you can't find corners, boundaries, or boundaries. So to know that this love that surpasses knowledge, that may be filled to the measure of all the fullness. Look at the language that he's talking about. Is this what you're experiencing right now? Undefinable terms about your love of Christ in your heart? Is it the same thing that you can't even imagine it or describe it or even talk about it with any kind of acumen? It's just like it's so big. Is that how we feel? Not always. And that's where the gap is, isn't it? And what if it was solved, hurdled, stepped over by a prayer or a person who prays for this in this direction? What would this gap between that moment into this beautiful result in this prayer starts with a prayer like that? Is it possible? And if that's the case, I look at these things that I love in this prayer, the power, the inside, outside, that this can be established. What does it mean if it's established? It's not going to go away when the winds come. It's going to be shaken, but not eroded, right? And the thing that you grasp is not something that just happens. It's because you made a decision that you want it more than anything else. It's a grasp. And I love the concept of being filled. I think this week you might feel like you're full. At Thanksgiving, it's a very common experience for people. When people fast on Thanksgiving, it's just a little weird. I'm going to say that, especially with all of the reality of smelling food all the time. It just goes directly into warm thoughts in your brain, and now you have to eat. Sorry. But this idea of being full. And I look at this prayer, and I'm just asking the question, should we be an optimist or a pessimist? And some of us will say, we just need to be realists. Okay. If in reality you're looking into the reality of the victory that was won for you, and the fact that you're paved, your future destination is sure, and your presence right now makes sense, and your past is forgiven, and what you have to do in the future is eminently doable when we walk with God. So, if that's your reality, check. And if you know that, then, so what's the problem? How can you not look at this cup, this life, as half empty and not just already completely full? Well, because we live in halfway lives. I had to write an article for the paper today about having a halfway lives, because I think that's what Paul is talking about here. And the halfway in his letter is the halfway moment that we admit that we are halfway. And who likes to go halfway? No, I mean, so far to go, can't go back, it's too much. When you think about a hike, you have to think about when you go, you have to go the other direction. Unless you're on a loop, then you need to know if your legs are tired at 7 and you got to go to 16, you need to understand that being halfway is not a good way or a good place, but it happens. And so I started thinking about halfway. And I started thinking about this prayer that Paul has asked us to pray and pray for people. And I saw three things in here that this prayer prompted me to do. And I would invite you to think about this, to see the landscape with gratitude. And this is an easy thing for us to do in this season. But this is how we get to our halfway that moment, or that mark. And there is a site right now, if you want to visit somebody, let's say into Walla Walla. I have a friend in Walla Walla. If I'm going to go the halfway, there's a mark. You put the destinations there, and it'll give you a place to meet, right? And it's almost like globally perfect. It's pretty good. But if I were to meet my friend, it's going to be at the nuclear plant parking lot. So we can just get a burrito and meet there in the parking lot and the halfway mark. So I started thinking about what does it mean to be halfway? And I started thinking about ways to move from that place. That the first one is gratitude. Is to start thinking the landscape as with the things that I know I've been blessed with. And if you look back in your history and the moment that you have now, you have enough in your tank to look at where you're at right now and have that sense of joy and gratitude. To also see the problems with, I call it a patient grace. Now, if I use this word, the level I, this is the Pathfinders have coined this phrase. I can't find a real origin other than the Pathfinders. But you look this, they own this phrase, right? This level I, this ability to be able to see your eyes and put it into the right direction no matter what's going on. To be able to see people a certain way. So easy to see the downsides or the annoying things that person might do or people who have done wrong. But in all of it, to be able to level your eyes and see. In Ephesians, in the next chapter, Paul will say this is a problem with our eyes and our speaking and stuff like that. Speak well. According to the grace that's been given for people, not because of the things that have done or what they might do, but speak into that person's life the things that has been given grace. It's called a level eye with this patient grace. And then also see the possibilities of hope. These are these moments that are prompted by this beautiful prayer. So if you want to see the slight or criticism in the words of another person, you will. If you want to see the deception of some sort of a conspiracy, you will. If you want to see mercy and opportunities to give away to other people by God's grace, you will. It's a possibility that comes into existence. It happens. Start with our eyes and our minds and moves into people's lives. And I think it was a junior or senior in high school. I mean, not high school, college. I was in college and I was in Tennessee, and I was assigned to preach into a church. But I don't know why I was late for class. It was a really good reason. I was so close to all those pastries in the South. And so I got a little distracted by the plant, and you can smell the sugar and fat and carbs. It's just my thing. But I was late for class, and I signed up to preach, and I have to go and preach. It was not one church. It had 3 churches in the middle of North Georgia. You can get lost in North Georgia, right? So everybody was laughing that I was going to these 3 places. I'm not going to tell you. But I was there, and I showed up, and I was always on time, and I'm in the parking lot. And this, I'm just waiting. It's an empty parking lot. And there's a pickup truck that came right up in front of the doors of this church. It's not a large church, very small. And this person came out, flyers in their hands, opened the key, opened the door, kicked it open, put that in. A little mat went outside. There's it's like a deacon on speed. It was just like, shh, and got in there, and I watched him to put 3 these flyers onto the little podium in the front. There was like 3 of them. 3. And he jumped into his truck and left. Emptied the church 100%. It's amazing how that church can grow so quickly when one person can show up. 100%. I did. The growth of that church doubled by my own presence. I walked in there, and I'm sitting there looking around. And I felt it's a little creepy, right? And so I looked at this little podium thing, and there was 3 bulletins. It just had like 3 or 4 words on it. There was nothing on the thing. My name was on there, and they did my Fitzpatrick or something like that, some Irish name, but put it in there. And it was just, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? And then I started going down the road. What am I doing with this church? And does this work? And where are you, God? And all of this stuff. I just went down the hill. It took about 2 minutes for me to come back, and I said, I have to actually graduate. I'm married pretty soon, and then I have to do this, and then let's just practice my sermon. So I got there, and I did my sermon by myself. It's a little like some of you guys sometimes. We're just very quiet, listening well. My voice echoed into that thing for about 15 minutes. And then as I was getting ready to the 3rd or 4th point of a 19-point sermon, I saw activity outside. I recognized it so easily because I used to skateboard. In the parking lot, they got a bunch of kids skateboarding. It was a perfect parking lot. And I didn't stop and yell or anything like that because I was at 4 out of how many points there? 19. All right, see, you are there. Anyway, they started coming in to the back, and they put their skateboards onto the pew, which I'm not sure that deacon would like that. And they just sat in the last one. 3 boys. I think they were boys. One of them. There were 3 young people. And they listened to the whole thing, and at the end, I did nothing like that. No, there's no great story at the end. At the end, they just got out of there quick and left. And I finished, graduated, got married, and 35 years later, I'm here. The point of the story at the end of that was, I didn't see what was going to happen. I didn't see that happening. I did not see skateboarders to show up to church when I just imagined I'm going to get this thing done and go to the next place and do the same thing. Hopefully there'll be humans there. I didn't see that happening. How can I not see that? To grasp the wide and long and high and deep, the love of Christ. Does God love people so much that they will put every opportunity in their lives to be connected to Him one way or another, through His church, through people, in spite of other things, broken things, good things, amazing things? Is God in control, moving people into those places? Then this should be our prayer, that we could see everything that we'll never be able to see. Like, does that make sense? Mathematically? Got a couple mathematics. Does it make sense to look forward and pray for things that you can't count and see? That might be very frustrating for some, but this is how it works. You might say you don't have the half of it. You don't have the story. You have people who have half-baked notions, and we have half-hearted efforts in living these half-truths and seeing only half of the story in people's lives. That's the beginning place to leap over this gap and find that beautiful prophecy given by Paul. So you can believe what you believe, and you can know and experience what you have today. This is that beginning, and I'm satisfied. And if you said that at the end, that's enough. I've already had what I need. I believe what I believe, and this is enough. If that's your conviction, and you're happy, I am sorry, but that's not what you were made for, and that's not what we're called to do. And some people will insist to live that way, but some who will just focus on the yesterday. That's another one. The one that I would offer is in this prayer. It's the thing that we can move us. And by that prayer, move us into an attitude of possibility. So, this is the prayer, and I've retitled it in my Bible, The Halfway Prayer for Those Who Are in the Halfway House, who are ready to move from this place at the halfway moment in life. And it's very simple. Would you pray this with me? It says, I kneel before the Father. I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and earth derives its name. I pray that out of His glorious riches, He may strengthen you with power through His Spirit in your inner being, the inside places, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all of the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep that love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all of the fullness of God.